Hi guys, it's Debbie from healingfrombpd.org and also dbtpath.com, and I'm here with you today on a topic that I think affects a lot of us, whether you have borderline personality disorder or you're just a really emotionally sensitive person or you find yourself becoming emotionally dysregulated from time to time. And that's my cat meowing in the background. But what we're going to talk about today is the difference between being mindful and mindful. And why is it important? Because we hear these terms, be mindful, be in the present moment, be in the now, all of the time, to the point where they've somehow lost their significance, like the gravity of how important it really is. But when we learn these skills, we realize how much of our lives we are not really participating in, not really noticing, and not really living, because our mind keeps going to the past or to the future, oftentimes thinking about bad things that happened from the past and thinking about things we're worrying about in the future. And while no one can really be perfect at staying in the present moment all the time, and it is something that takes a lot of practice, it can also be very, very beneficial to our health, especially as people who tend to be emotionally sensitive or experience dysregulation. Okay, so surprise, surprise, I have some worksheets with me to go over with you guys, and I will go through each of these items on the first one, and it's the 15 styles of distorted thinking. And these are items that, if you notice yourself in them, it's not about judging yourself and saying, oh my gosh, I do that, I'm crazy, I'm this, I'm that. No, you're not. This is just a list of distorted thinking styles that are so common that they made this list of the top 15. So if you do see yourself in them, don't despair or get too upset or worried. Just know that there are ways to cope effectively through learning and practicing mindfulness skills to shift out of the distorted thinking into a clearer way of thinking that is a little bit more in line with reality. Okay, so here we go. The first one on the list is filtering. You take the negative details and magnify them while filtering out all positive aspects of a situation. I mean, this is one of those things where, let's say, I'll give you an example, you put a YouTube video up and 80 people are praising you and telling you how wonderful you are and how wonderful the content of your video is and what a wonderful musician you are, or artist or comedian, or whatever the topic is of your YouTube video. And then you get that one comment that says, you're a jerk, you're ugly. And that's the one you remember and hold on to and latch on to and think, oh my God, somebody thinks I'm a jerk and I'm ugly. And you're not focusing on, there are 80 people who have left positive feedback. So that's an example of filtering. Polarized thinking, and this is really common in borderline personality disorder, but also in people that don't have it, but you'll see what I mean. Polarized thinking is things are black or white, good or bad. You have to be perfect or you're a failure. There is no middle ground. So we had a participant in a seminar recently over at DBT Path who said that they either felt that they had to completely surrender to their loved one who was in emotional distress and do anything they wanted, or just abandon them. And she didn't know what to do. And another participant in the seminar said there has to be some middle ground between just totally giving up on, you know, making an effort to work on things and just abandoning the person. But if you tend to do this, where you tend to see the two extremes, and I will admit I am one to have that issue, and then someone else will point out a middle ground item and I'll go, oh, I didn't even think of that, and it makes total sense afterwards. So if you have that, then that's considered polarized thinking. The next one is number 3, overgeneralizations. So it says you come to a general conclusion based on a single incident or piece of evidence. If something bad happens once, you expect it to happen over and over again. So what might be an example of this? This would be a little bit extreme, but let's say you went on public transportation and got on the bus and there was an incident of violence on the bus, or somebody was acting up or was really drunk and got loud and rowdy, something like that. You might think, I'm never getting on the bus again because that probably happens all the time and I just can't handle it. I don't want to ever get on a bus again because of the one incident. And the next one is mind reading, and I've done a number of posts on this, including one called the psychic borderline. If you Google it, it'll probably come up, or if you just put it in the healingfrombpd.org search bar. And it says, without their saying so, you know what people are feeling and why they act the way they do. In particular, you are able to divine how people are feeling toward you. Now, I want to say something about this in terms of people who do suffer from BPD, because we often do legitimately have a keen ability to read what's going on with other people in terms of emotions, which is really interesting, at least in my experience and that of those who've, decided to share with me about that aspect of their experience. But what this is saying is that we're not always accurate, and other people do this too, and I've called it coming up with stories. We make up stories about what people are thinking about us, or what they must be having as their motive or whatever toward us, and then we believe it and we act upon our thoughts, even though not all thoughts are true. So if you often think you know what your partner, your child, your parent, your best friend, your lover is thinking and doing, and then you guys end up getting into a fight because they're like, whoa, that's out of left field, I had no idea that you were thinking I was thinking that because I wasn't, then you might be doing the mind reading distorted thinking on this list. So the next one is catastrophizing. This is really common, especially with people who suffer from anxiety and lots of fears. And it says, you expect disaster. You notice or hear about a problem and start what ifs. Like, what if this? What if that? What if tragedy strikes? What if it happens to me? And a lot of times people who suffer from this, it's because they have had really tragic or traumatic or scary things happen in their life. So no wonder they have these kinds of thoughts and tend to jump from, one thing to the most catastrophic. But, it's a neurological response. It's our nervous system reacting based on prior experience. But we can train it through mindfulness practice to slow that whole thing down. So we don't go from, as one person once described it, from a sneeze to the grave. It's not always that dramatic that one little thing happens and the most severe, scary, awful thing is going to be the result. And usually it isn't. So that's catastrophizing. And again, that is something that you can bring down through the use of a mindfulness practice. Number 6 is personalization. So thinking that everything that people do or say is some kind of reaction to you. You also compare yourself to others, trying to determine who's smarter, better looking, etc. And if we are real with ourselves about this one, oftentimes this comes from a place of insecurity. So if that is the case, then becoming more mindful about our own experience and the acceptance and openness about others can really help around this one. Number 7 is control fallacies. If you feel externally controlled, you see yourself as a helpless victim of fate. The fallacy of internal control has you responsible for the pain and happiness of everyone around you. If you have BPD or you're really emotionally sensitive, you might relate to it in this way. Every single animal that you see on Facebook that needs to be adopted or needs money to help with surgery, or any child that has cancer or different things going on that you hear about, your heart is so compelled that you feel like you have to take care of everyone. You have to be the one to come up with the money or organize something or do something. It's all on you. Like you have to be the Messiah. So that's one example of control fallacy. And also, if, let's say you have a hard time in a work environment because you feel really... something happens and you get really stressed out if you're directed to do anything, and I know I've experienced this as well, and you just feel like this helpless victim because you're just like, oh, am I a piece of crap? Why do I have to do this where somebody is bossing me around and telling me to do these menial things, type of thing. But the fact is, most of us do have a boss at one time or another, and not all of the parts of our job are glamorous. And the next one is blaming. You hold other people responsible for your pain, or take the other tactic and blame yourself for every problem or reversal. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And when we do slow these types of thoughts down, the blame thoughts, we get the blame, shame stuff that comes up. And we can really break it down and start to look at what the real underlying feeling is. And it's usually fear, it's usually sadness, that sort of thing. But without the mindful attention to what's going on, it's hard to know that, and it's easy to get stuck in just blaming, or whether it's yourself or another person. The next one on the list is number 10, which is shoulds. You have a list of ironclad rules about how you and other people should act. People who break the rules anger you, and you feel guilty if you violate the rules. One of the concepts in mindfulness that can be really helpful with this, because a lot of us tend to be perfectionists about certain things, one thing or the other, or maybe many things or all things, depending on your situation. And the shoulds, like Alicia at DBT Path always says, don't should all over yourself. And whenever she says it, I always have to write out the word S-H-O-U-L-D so people know she hasn't sworn on it, because it sounds so similar. But don't should all over yourself. It's basically, radical acceptance is a huge concept in dialectical behavior therapy, and we really delve into it in the mindfulness class, because it's all about understanding the compromise between accepting what has happened, not necessarily approving of whatever has happened or is happening, but accepting that it is happening or has happened and that you don't have control over it. Because so often we want to fight and resist that reality, and it does us no good. It just makes us more stressed and can keep us feeling sick and emotionally stressed out, and we don't want to be in that place. We want to feel well. So the next one is number 11, emotional reasoning. And it says that you believe that what you feel must be true automatically. If you feel stupid and boring, then you must be stupid and boring. This was a huge one for me. And one of the most liberating things I would say was when I realized, after hearing it enough times, is that not all thoughts are true, and not everything we feel is necessarily a fact. I'll say that again. Not all thoughts are true, and not everything we feel is necessarily a fact. A lot of us went through severe crap when we were kids, let me just put it that way. Not everyone, but some. And some of us have maybe gone through abusive relationships in adulthood, or whatever the situation might have been. And so naturally our brain wants to be able to protect us and go from, I feel this, it must be unsafe, you know, or I feel scared, it must be unsafe, or whatever the situation might be. But it may be that just past experiences are coloring our current experience, and that there is no safety issue in them. Does that make sense? And as you're practicing mindfulness, you learn to discern and distinguish between what's really happening now and whether or not this thought is necessarily true, or it's just a thought that I can notice and let it go, and whether this feeling is necessarily connected to a fact, or whether it's something that I can just notice, experience, and let it go. Number 12 is fallacy of change. You expect that other people will change to suit you if you just pressure and cajole them enough. Am I saying that correctly? You need to change people because your hopes for happiness seem to depend entirely on them. I used to think that that was the truth, really. And some of you know that when I was very young, I was married. And I just thought that if my husband could be exactly what I thought I needed and wanted him to be, then I would be so happy. Oh, how very unselfish of me. But that's where my mind was at that time, you know. And so I would try to get him to do certain things and be someone that he really wasn't, to help me to feel better. And, you know, blessings to that part of me at that time. But I can see it now in retrospect that that wasn't the answer, and it was a distorted way of thinking. Everyone is their own individual being, and they are their own individual selves, and that just doesn't work. Just like it doesn't work for someone to try to change you. Number 13 is global labeling. You generalize one or two qualities into a negative global judgment. So if someone is a little bit annoying, they're just an annoying person. Like if they have one or two little annoying habits, she's an annoying person. Or if someone tends to get a little bit feisty or irritated about something, she's an angry person, you know. And it's just one little thing, and it means that person is all of that, or that place is all of that. It's like one piece of trash on the floor that's a dirty, nasty, garbage filled place, you know. And the next one is number 14, being right. You are continually on trial to prove that your opinions and actions are correct. Being wrong is unthinkable, and you will go to any length to demonstrate your rightness. I've written about this one before, especially in the workplace. I was so afraid of being seen as not perfect and making mistakes and all of that, that I would just go through to any length, and I would often make a fool out of myself in the end because I had made the mistake, but I was trying so hard, you know, blaming on everything and everyone but myself so that I didn't look bad, but I ended up looking bad because of that. So definitely, when it comes to being right and mindfulness, we talk about sometimes you have to look at a situation and ask yourself, is it better to be right, or is it better to be effective in this situation? Which is going to help me grow and help me have the most peace and maintain my relationships and my self-respect and all of those good things and all of my long-term goals. Sometimes it's better to just be effective rather than be right. And an example of this that is similar to one that Marsha Linehan gives, and Marsha Linehan's the woman who created DBT, is if you're on the highway, let's say you're on a 2-lane road and, you know, the opposite traffic going like this, and somebody is riding your tail because they want to go faster, and you're looking down at your speedometer and you're like, I'm going the speed limit, I'm even going like 2 miles over, I'm going 37, it says 35, and this guy wants to get by. And you're just like, I don't think so. And you just keep going, and you can see this guy is like really fuming and he wants to get around you and you don't let him go. So in that case, this is kind of a self-righteous needing to be right. Whereas it might be more effective to just pull over and let the guy go rather than playing police officer, even though you know it's the right thing to do to go to the speed limit. This guy wants to go, let him go. You're going to be less stressed. He's going to be less aggressive with you. You don't know what someone's going to do with road rage these days. So in that case, it was probably a safer, better idea to be effective rather than being right. And in a mindfulness practice, we learn how to work toward that, because so many of us have been so wronged unjustly in our lives that we, you know, any little injustice, like someone trying to ride our tail when we're being good and doing the speed limit, can feel so frustrating and upsetting that we don't want to let them by. But we learn about how that affects us, you know, in the long run and other people. So the last one on this list is heaven's reward fallacy. You expect all your sacrifice and self-denial to pay off as if there was someone keeping score. You feel bitter when the reward doesn't come. I'll give you an example of this. So an example of this would be, let's say you're in a relationship with someone, and in your mind, without communicating it, you say to yourself, oh, whether it's a guy or a girl, I'm going to make him dinner, and I'm going to keep the house really clean, and I'm going to take care of the kids, and I'm going to take his laundry to the dry cleaners, and in return, he's going to love me and be affectionate, and oh, I made such a nice dinner, I expect he's going to want to snuggle with me on the couch tonight, and if he doesn't, you're just totally falling apart because you're like, how dare you? I did, in your head, I did this, I did this, I did this. But it was never communicated to this person that there was an expectation set up. And he or she may not even be aware that that was going on in the back of your mind, that, you know, you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart, yes, but you're hoping in reciprocation that you're going to receive cuddling, you know, some attention, some love, some, you know, being asked to go somewhere, maybe some flowers being brought home, or offer to watch the kids while you take a shower. You know, you expect it, but it's not communicated, and that's where the distortion comes through with this. So getting clear in a mindful way about your expectations and what your hopes and desires are, so that you can effectively communicate them, is how you would work on that distorted thinking style. One more thing I want to go over with you is called the mindless exercise, and it says basic mindfulness skills. I think it may even come from the book that we use in our course, and it's basically just a way to assess where you are with mindfulness. And it's called a mindless exercise. And it says, obviously, mindfulness is a skill that requires practice. Most people get distracted or zone out, and for some of us, we even dissociate, right? or spend most of their daily lives being unmindful or running on autopilot. As a result, they then get lost, anxious, and frustrated when a situation doesn't happen as they expect it to. So here are some common ways in which all of us have experienced being unmindful. Check the ones that you've done. So I'm going to go through them, and you guys can just put a little check mark on a piece of paper to keep track if you want. And one of them, and I know everybody's experienced this one, while driving or traveling, you don't remember the experience or which roads you took. Often people say the angels must have taken me home because I don't even know how I got here and how I got here so fast. Next one is while having a conversation, you suddenly realize you don't know what the other person is talking about. Or maybe while watching a video, you're like, what was she just talking about? And you have to rewind it. Next one, while having a conversation, you're already thinking about what you're going to say next before the other person has even stopped speaking. Next one, while reading, you suddenly realize that you've been thinking about something else and have no idea what you just read. Haven't we all experienced that? You're reading and you know you're scanning the words with your eyeballs and you're thinking about something else and you have to go back because you don't even know what you just read, right? And after putting something down, you can't remember where you just put it. After taking a shower, while taking a shower, you're already planning what you have to do later, and then you forget if you've already washed your hair or some other body part. Or how many times have we gotten out of the shower with conditioner still in our hair, wondering why our head is so greasy the next day. So these are a lot of examples of ways that we are not fully present in our lives and that we miss out on things or maybe make mistakes or overlook things. And in our mindfulness class, we do actual exercises that have to do with some of the examples that are on here, and we work on just looking at our thoughts, getting a little bit more comfortable with something that can be really terrifying, which is spending a little bit of time alone with ourselves in quiet. And we are supportive in that environment. We practice together in the class. So we meet every week for an hour online, and this doesn't matter wherever in the world you are, this is available. It's completely online. And so myself and Alicia Paz, who is a licensed therapist, we meet with you guys. You have the option, if you have a microphone built into your computer, or ideally if you have a headset, to speak with us live. If you don't feel comfortable, you're shy, or you don't have a microphone, you could always type it into a little chat box that we have. So we do that. And then during the week for the mindfulness class, it is intensive in terms of the amount of exercises you'll have for homework. They're short, but there are a lot of them. So Alicia and I have recorded little mini lecture videos that include mindfulness exercises that you practice throughout the week, and you keep track of your progress in a diary. And then when we come back to class the following week, we actually discuss it and go over it and see where there were challenges or what you're not getting or what's really worked and was helpful and powerful in your life and how you're seeing a change and a difference. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do look forward to connecting with you again, whether it's over at the healingfrombpd.blog or over at the classes I teach with Alicia Paz over at dbtpath.com. We also have a Facebook page, so hopefully you'll like us there as well, and a Twitter. So hopefully this was helpful, guys. Let me know in the comments below, and looking forward to connecting with you again soon. Talk to you later. Bye.